Thank you very much. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Goffstown Planning Board meeting. This is a regularly scheduled meeting for Thursday, May 27th, 2021. Before we begin the meeting, since it is a remote meeting, I have a right to know checklist to read. As the chair of the Goffstown Planning Board, due to the COVID-19 outbreak and in accordance with Governor Sununu's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Please note there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibility by video or other electronic means. The planning board is utilizing a telephone conference line for this electronic meeting. The public access has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting through dialing the following telephone number: 603-766-5646 and using the participant code 785645 followed by the pound sign. The town previously gave notice to the public of how to access the meeting using the available telephone number with the posted agenda. Joanne, the number is not correct on my sheet for the problem with the telephone access line.
I have 488-6783.
Okay, it was not on the sheet. Let me 488
488-6783.
6782
83.
83. So if anybody has a problem with telephone access, please call 603-488-6783. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting and have it rescheduled at a later time. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. We begin the meeting by taking roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. What do you have here at the bottom of the sheet for my new sheet, Joanne, about anyone wishing to speak from the public? Am I supposed to read that as well?
And what is it? How does it start? Anyone
wishing to speak from the public, dial *9 and the operator will recognize you.
Yes, so if you could make an announcement, there's a lot of feedback. So anyone who is on the phone needs to mute unless they're speaking.
Okay, anybody who is on the phone waiting to speak needs to mute their phone until such a time as you are recognized to speak. Joanne has a list of everyone that is in the queue and she will recognize you at the appropriate time. So please mute your phones. Okay. Having that out of the way, we'll do a roll call vote to begin. Starting with myself, my name is Tim Ledman. I am the chair of the planning board. The next one would be our vice chair, Kimberly.
Kimberly Pease here, and I am alone.
Phil Devanza.
Yep, I'm here and I'm alone.
Collis Adams, our selectmen's rep.
Present and alone in the room.
Gail Lebrecht.
Gail Lebrecht, alternate and recording secretary, and I am alone in the room.
And last is Dave Pierce.
This is David. I'm an alternate member and I'm alone.
Thank you all. We are presently without at least 2 board members, so Gail and David will be voting alternate members in the place of at least two board members that are missing. So Gail and David will be voting on all applications.
Tim, did I hear Jim Raymond? Did he sign in? Did he check in?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
No, I did not know Jim was here. I was not giving your name. So we are missing who? Barbara
And
Lauren.
Karen,
and Karen. So we still have 2 alternates to vote. Okay. So we have some correspondence and action items to begin with. First one being acceptance or corrections of the minutes of May the 13th. Action needed. Do we have any corrections? If not, a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve. It's Phil.
I'll second, Kimberly.
Motion's been made by Phil, seconded by Kimberly to accept as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Kimberly?
Tim,
Yeah.
Tim, this is Jim. There's a minor correction on page 8 on the second paragraph. It says, they quote me in the second line, as a matter of force, and that word should be a matter of course. We don't force people.
You are actually both, Jim, so we'll take the second version.
But if you want to force people, I won't object.
Not very
Okay.
often anyways.
So Phil, would you amend your motion, please?
Oh, I think I muted him. Wait a second. No, I can't get him off of there. Phil, can you hear us? Phil?
Well, we'll put that on hold for a second. Because I was errant in not recognizing the rest of the staff, so I'd like to recognize the other members of the meeting, starting with you, Joanne.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
My apologies. And do we have Sarah with us?
Yes, Sarah Wardy, town engineer, and my husband and daughter are here.
Is there anyone else I failed to recognize, Joanne?
No, they're the applicants. Some of them are on the screen and most of the others are on the phone.
All right, well, we'll get to them. I just wanted to make sure staff and members were recognized. Thank you. So is Phil there? Phil, can you hear us?
I don't know why he can't hear. He's not muted any longer.
Well, we never voted on the motion. We can delay them. We can delay the minutes till later in the meeting when Phil is back with us.
Okay, I just removed him from the meeting so he could call back in.
Shall we wait for Phil, Joanne?
I think he could catch up.
I'll
Tim,
put
I'm
the,
going to move that we deny the motion as made, and then we can do a second motion to amend, to approve as amended, so we can just get through this.
okay, so do we have to vote to deny the motion, Jim?
Well, I guess you don't want to take a roll. Maybe you can combine it. Let's combine that we vote to deny the initial motion. I make a motion to approve the minutes as amended, and we combine them into one vote. So you just have to go around the circle once.
So we have that motion by Jim. Do I have a second?
Kimberly, a second.
Thank you, Kimberly. All right, and we had the correction made, so we'll have our roll call vote at this time. Kimberly,
Yes.
Phil? Collis,
Yes,
Gail,
yes,
David,
Yes,
Jim,
Yes.
and Tim, the chair votes yes. So we did not get a vote from Phil, Gail.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the correspondence and action items is a request to hold a cash surety for the McDonald's project. Joanne, could you please explain that?
Yes, the McDonald's project, as you know, is under construction. And they've fulfilled the items that they were supposed to do, and they're working on the landscaping. But because of the trouble with getting landscaping to get accomplished and find a landscaper and all of that, the schedules of all of these projects have been pushed out. So McDonald's is looking to put up a cash surety for the remainder of the landscaping in the amount of $2,750. And then they would have the landscaping done within the next 30 days or so. They just want some time so that they can open up, not the sit-down service, but the takeout in the meantime while the landscaping is being completed. And we do have Michael Gambino on the phone.
Before we go that direction, who made the determination on the amount, Joanne?
We got an estimate from their landscaping company called K. Clouds Landscape Design, Inc. out of Concord.
And has DPW weighed in on this at all?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask Sarah to speak, please.
The amount was just a lump sum amount given in a letter. I have done a couple inspections and can confirm that landscaping still needs to be done. It seems like an adequate amount to accomplish the amount of landscaping that spring.
So that's your official recommendation, Sarah?
This request has primarily gone through Joanne. She's had the most contact with the owner and the contractor making this request. It has
Okay.
not come through DPW.
Okay. Collis, you wish to speak?
Yeah, I'm wondering, is there a guarantee for survival of the landscaping stock, given the time of the year and the fact that we're in a very dry period and looks like it's not going to get much wetter much quicker?
We do not carry, like some towns do, they carry a bond or a letter of credit for 2 years beyond the planting to make sure that they do survive. We don't have anything like that here. So basically they have to conform to their site plan approval, and the site plan approval requires the certain plantings that were approved. So we could always go back and say, you need to, if this died, you need to replant, but we don't have anything hard to hold them to it.
I think it would be reasonable if that was something that the planning board was concerned about. They could make it a condition of this accepting the surety that we hold it for a certain amount of time, maybe say till like September, do an inspection and then return it instead of returning it as soon as they're planted.
Any other discussion?
And Tim, if I can follow up on that,
Please.
and a stipulation that any stock that doesn't survive has to be replanted until it does establish itself.
Tim, this is Jim. I have a question for Collis, the landscaping expert. Is September too soon? Because that just gets us through the summer month. Do we want to carry this until further into the fall to make sure it's taken?
Yeah, I think we do. I think we want to carry it through the whole growing season.
Usually
Which-
go to Columbus Day.
Is that you, Phil?
Yeah, usually go to Columbus Day. I don't know what happened. I got cut off before. I had to redial.
Okay.
That was my fault.
I'm going to move that we approve the bond, but on a condition that it be held until November 1 to assure that the plantings are successful, and that's without waiving the requirement that they maintain them into the future in accordance with the site plan approval.
All right, Jim's
Thanks. I'll
made a
second
motion to
that
it,
motion, Tim.
seconded by Collis. Before we vote on the motion, Joanne, does the applicant representative, or is it the applicant themselves wish to speak or be heard on this matter?
Yes, so I have an issue, and this is what happened to Phil. Garrett, can you hear me?
I can, yep.
Garrett, when the people who are on the phone on Teams, I muted them, but now I can't seem to unmute them.
Joanne, this is Michael Gambino. If you want me to speak, I
Oh,
could
you're
now.
there.
If you could hear
Okay.
me.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I hit *6.
Okay.
Well, hi everyone. My name is Michael Gambino. I'm the owner of the McDonald's in Goffstown. So thank you all for your time and thank you for putting us on the agenda. Basically, everything you guys have said is correct. We did get the quote from our landscaper. He, it just takes time. He has to get all the plantings and, he has other projects in the pipeline and so forth. So that's why I'm just asking for the time to do this. And I understand that you guys want to push it out and, I have no problem with that. You're holding our cash, but, we have every intention. We have just spent a lot of money on the restaurant and did a lot of things above and beyond that we didn't have to do just because we wanted it to look really good for the customer, for our crew, for the town. And so we have a sprinkler system. We have had our sprinkler company come out and double check all the sprinklers because obviously we don't want to invest the money in the landscaping and have anything die. So everything is been updated, sprinkler heads and everything in accordance with where the plantings will be. And, we will obviously, as a franchisee, if anything does, if anything dies or doesn't make it, we will obviously replace it in kind just because A, that's the right thing to do, but B, McDonald's holds us to that standard. And that's really it. I really appreciate your help with this so that we can open for takeout for the customers.
All right, Joanne, does Michael understand the date is November 1st when the soonest the bond could be returned?
Yes, he was listening.
Okay, good. That's, I'll make sure he understood all the terms and conditions, that's all.
This Jim, I have a question for Collis, I guess. Do we want a proviso that if staff at an earlier date concludes that the plantings are successful, the applicant can request a release? I don't want to hold it longer than necessary, or is that an appropriate time to confirm that stuff is growing?
No, I think that's
Yeah,
appropriate, Jim. I think that's reasonable. I think that assures us that stuff is gonna live, and that's what we're looking for, is to make sure that things are gonna live, and if they get through the summer and into the fall, and they're well established and they've survived, then I think we can rest assured they probably will survive into the future, so I think it's reasonable. And he just stated they have a sprinkler system. I mean, it really shouldn't be an issue. I mean, if things aren't looking good, go out and turn the sprinklers on.
So if we add that as to the motion, is that an appropriate provision? That they can come in earlier if they can establish that it's successful, or do you want to wait till November 1?
Sounded to me like Collis said he wanted to wait till November 1.
Yeah, my preference is just to wait.
Okay, well, I won't make the amendment then.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor that is, no more discussion, I assume. We'll call a vote on it. Kimberly,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Collis,
Yes,
Gail? Gail, are you there?
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
and Tim, the chair, votes yes, so it passes unanimously. All right,
Thank you all very much. I really appreciate it. Can I ask one question?
yes, you can.
And then I'll stop taking up all your time. So, Joanne, it's okay if our store manager brings the check over to the town office in the morning and then we can just proceed from there?
Yes, I'll talk to you tomorrow about it, and yes, you can bring the check over in the morning, and we will submit it to the finance department.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, and then we can go ahead and do takeout. Obviously, we don't want to do dine-in service, sit-down service. We want to do just the takeout, just the way we were operating, prior to the construction. So I really appreciate it.
Okay, sir, thank you very much.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Good night. Joanne, the
Bye-bye.
third item on the correspondence action items is a continuous request. Could you explain what that is?
Where are you looking?
Third item on correspondence and action items, there's a continuance request.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we have a request from the owners of map 12, lot 10, which is the 4-lot subdivision on Montalona. They had offered to sprinkler the 4 homes, and the fire department is asking for a cistern. So now they're trying to figure out where the cistern can go. So they've asked to be continued to June 24th.
What are our regulations on that subject, Joanne?
Well, they can ask for a continuation. They did have a hearing. It has been found complete, and they did waive the 65-day clock. So that everything else with the project besides, there's a couple of little things, but nothing outstanding that would be traumatic as to affect them moving forward. So, but the cistern is a big issue, and where to put it, because
Joanne,
all of these,
my question for you, Joanne, is those regulations in our development regulations regarding cistern versus sprinklers?
oh, I thought you were talking about the continuance. Yes, it's very vague. It basically gives the fire department the authority, and we have a rule in town that anything over 3 lots requires a cistern. So the fire department has the ruling as to where it goes and how big it will be. And so they've asked for a 30,000 gallon. The problem with this particular site is all of these 4 lots are right along the roadway on Montalona. So they would have to actually put the cistern right in someone's yard. The fire department wouldn't accept the sprinklers versus the cistern because they said in that particular section of town, there's a problem with the water. There is nothing really over there to supply water for fire fighting.
Well,
So
I thought our regulations were cut and dried, that the developer had the option over 3 where it was required to have a cistern, that they had the option to sprinkle if they chose to. So is that not the language in our development regulations?
you may have done that with prior approvals, but that's not what the ordinance says.
Okay, that's all I need to know. I'm good. We're gonna have to look at that further down the road.
Okay. I'll take that portion of the ordinance and include it when they come back.
Okay. So, can we have a motion for the continuous request from some of our members, or if there's further discussion on it?
Yeah, Tim, I'll make a motion to grant the request for continuance to date certain, and that date is what, Joanne?
June 24th.
Thank you.
Do I have a second?
I'll second, Kimberly.
Thank you, Kimberly. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll have a roll call vote. Kimberly,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Collis,
Yes,
Gail,
Yes,
David,
Yes,
Jim?
Yes.
Tim, the chair, votes yes. So it's taken care of. Okay, the next item on our agenda,
Tim, you
Under-
skipped David Neiman.
yes, I got it right here.
Okay.
I have my agenda. We have an open space committee, David Neiman's presentation of a conservation easement. Gibney property off Snook Road. So at this point, I think we'll open the floor up to David. It speaks for itself. David, could you identify yourself for the record, please?
Yep, this is David Neiman. I'm with the Goffstown Conservation Commission. And good evening, everybody. It's good to see you all again. So earlier, month or so ago, we were here presenting to you the Burns easement off Snook Road. This is in the same area, and it's really, the goals of this easement are the same, pretty much the same goals as the Burns easement, to protect the high quality wetlands and streams and this whole complex of wetlands that are north of Snook Road there. or excuse me, south of Snook Road. And so the goal here was to kind of tie up the protection along the northern side of it, which, you know, we did on the western side with Burns. And now we're getting this other section with the Gibneys, which is directly north and abutting the Shost easement, which was done a few years back. So this project is south of Snook Road. It's lots 88, 788, and 788B. It is north of, abuts, and extends into Snook Road Swamp, which is one of the higher quality wetlands in town. That's the one with the big heron rookery in it, for those of you who may have walked it before or seen this area. So I won't go into too much detail because the story is so similar to what was presented before with the Burns. But just to again mention that this property, like the other one, is ranked very high in some of the regional and state plans. So in the Merrimack Conservation Plan, it's one of the higher scoring focus areas. And in the New Hampshire Wildlife Action Plan, it's Tier 2, which is highest in biological region. In addition to this whole wetland complex that's protected, this property also is really rich with vernal pools. There's quite a few vernal pools scattered throughout the whole thing, so we're very pleased with that. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell as far as what we're doing and why we're doing it. The entire project will be paid for using the Conservation Commission's Land Use Change Tax Conservation Fund. We did not, the grant that would have been most appropriate for this would have been an ARM grant, but we were already applying for one for the Burns. We couldn't really put in 2 applications at once. So we put in the application for the more expensive project. And we'll just pay for this one entirely out of the Land Use Change Tax Conservation Fund. Our total budget, the value of the purchase was $90,000. And when all the other fees and expenses are added in, it comes out to $112,443. That's the project in a nutshell.
Thank you, David, for that presentation. Does any board member have any comments or questions for David Neiman?
Mr. Chair, I move that we recommend the acquisition of this. Is it a land acquisition or a conservation easement?
Yeah.
It's a conservation easement, which will be held by the Piscataquag Land Conservancy.
And the town will hold an executory interest, right, David?
Yes, correct.
So Jim has made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second, Collis.
Seconded by Collis Adams. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Kimberly?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Collis?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes, can we tell David we like his beard? That was news since we had a meeting in person.
Well, I assumed last year if I'm going to live like a hermit, I might as well go the full roll.
And I vote yes as the chair. So the motion passes. We're going to it'll be a favorable recommendation to the select board, David.
Tim,
Thank you very much.
Tim, can I make a quick comment at this point, please, Tim?
Yes, hang on there, David Collis, please.
Yeah, I'd like to take a moment just to publicly recognize David for all of the hard work and dedication he's put into this project. I think it's a wonderful thing for the town of Goffstown. David, thank you for all your hard work on this.
Well, thank you, Collis, and thank you to everyone for your continued support as we do these projects. It's greatly appreciated.
Okay, David.
Yes,
Thank you for appearing tonight, David.
All right, thanks.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Under the first item under old business is map 12 lot 10 subdivision hearing for Montalona Road. This had a continuation request that was granted earlier in the meeting. Second old business is map 4 lot 87-6, a conformance review of the documents for Woodland Village. Joanne, could you bring us up to speed, please?
Yes, so at the last meeting, you heard from the applicant that they would like to do the phases as a condominium due to the financing aspects of it. And also, all of the documents were reviewed and the board did review them and had some comments and some questions. Those have been addressed. We did not include the entire documents in your packet. We just included the pages, and I wrote on the top of the pages which document it applied to. We went back and forth with the applicant during the week, and we came to the conclusion that everything was good and ready. Attorney Manchester worked with us and was able to get us the paperwork in a timely fashion.
Thank you. Board members, any questions for Joanne at this point?
Kim, I want to be clear that she might summarize the documents that changed, and I think the development agreement you're recommending we not go forward with.
Yes.
Why don't you put down the list so the board knows what's before us? They don't read these for a living.
So the first document in the packet is the declaration of covenants and restrictions for the residential use on lot 87-6-1, which is the lot that is going to remain with either one single family home or one duplex. And we had a discussion about whether that particular paragraph was clear for going forward in the future. So the language has been changed in number 1 at the top of the page, where it makes it much clearer that it is only one single family home or one duplex that can be built. And Attorney Tierney, who is representing the owner, did agree to this language.
And that was what was in the original conditions of approval, right? That wording?
Correct. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else have a question or comments for Joanne at this time? Okay, seeing none, Joanne, I'm gonna open the public hearing right now.
There's
So
some other
that-
changes. Let's go through
Yeah,
the other
that's
ones.
just
I
one
thought we
document.
were completed. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
So
I have just a few
We'll hold
more.
off on the public hearing.
So the walking trail easement deed for both lots 87-6 and 87-6-1. There was language that was deleted that Jim had brought up about the town having some sort of liability. That language has been changed. Jim has seen it and agreed to what is there now. It's at the bottom of the page, on the second page of the stapled documents.
Any questions on that from board members on the walking trail easement deed? Okay, Joanne?
The next group is, and I think Sue Manchester should sort of explain this one. There's 2 documents. They're called Exhibit A to Conservation Easement Deed. The conservation easement deed was surveyed, and it was discovered that there were some encroachments from abutters with small buildings. And so this surveyor put together 2 different documents. One is to include those encroachments and just still have the same boundary line of the deed, of the easement. The second one is to adjust the easement itself, make it a little smaller and remove those encroachments that are now on the property. Sue is here if you want her to explain that a little better than I have.
Attorney
this is Sue.
Attorney
Can you hear
Manchester,
me?
could you please identify yourself for the record and then feel free to speak?
Susan Manchester, she and Fanny Bass and Green. The surveyor discovered that when he was going out, that there had been encroachments. He believes they were put there by an abutting residential project. he's of the opinion that you would rather have a conservation easement that does not include that land. I did not know which you wanted, so I have two. One that does not include that land, and therefore is clean, or a second one that includes all of the land, but notes that there are encroachments. And it makes no difference to us which one you want.
Okay, thank you. Board members?
Well, this is Jim. My view is to take it's called the larger with encroachments. So if the encroachments were ever removed, we'd have the whole thing. Otherwise, we're getting less than we thought we were getting. We're not gonna tag the applicant for those encroachments and make them remove. That's why there are exceptions to the description. I think that's fair, but once they're no longer there, we should have the whole scope of the conservation easement. So I'd recommend the larger with encroachment options of the two.
Any other board?
Applicant standpoint, I think puts us in the same place. Currently it's just looking forward. I don't want to give up a conservation easement area.
Any other board members?
That was my recommendation as well.
So
Yes,
Jim?
it was.
So Jim, I have a question for you. Jim Raymond?
Jim recognizes the chair of the committee. He may speak.
Thank you. So are we recommending at this time to any town agency that these encroachments be identified and landowners be advised they need to be removed?
I think that's a private matter between, unless they're material to the present purpose of the conservation easement. It depends how big the encroachments are. I don't know from this to where maybe, so you can tell us. But if they're minor encroachments that don't affect, well, really the goal of the conservation easement, we leave them. I'm not establishing a policy going ahead because it's really a matter of scale, the impact of the encroachments on conservation easement and the intent we're trying to achieve with the conservation easement. If I don't see them as terribly material here, so that we need to establish some general policy going ahead.
This is Sue Manchester. There's some utility and a septic, and they're just on a corner of the property. It's really tucked away. I don't think it's material.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Manchester. All right, then, is any other, so we have another, do we have to have a vote on this? We'd have to have a vote, a board vote on which of the exhibits to accept, correct, Jim?
Yes, although if you want to go through the other, well, I think we do on this one, you're right, because we're given a choice. So let's do that, and then we can, I'm going to suggest as to the other documents, after Joanne with Sue Manchester's help goes through them, we can adopt them as a batch as amended, if that's what the board chooses.
So do any other board members want to weigh in at this point before I open the public hearing?
Well, you want to, well, we still have some other documents to go through, Tim. So do you want to?
I don't see them here in front of me. I just had the.
Well, we're gonna, Joanne, I thought we were gonna pull the development agreement based on.
Yeah, we do have to talk about that. And there's the drainage maintenance agreement too.
Well, I didn't get copied with those. That's why I didn't know they were to be discussed, Joanne.
Okay. Well, on the other one, there's nothing to copy because we're recommending that it be removed. But do you want to vote on this one first, or do you want to wait?
I'm not voting on anything until after a public hearing has been held. You can vote on everything later.
Okay. So the next document was the subdivision, was not the subdivision, the development agreement that was put together several years ago, and staff took a look at it, and also Adam Jacobs met with Sarah, and we all kind of decided that it really pertains more to a subdivision where there are town roads going through versus something like this, which is a site plan with private roads. So, and there was no need to include the fees, the impact fees or sewer fees, because once you do that, then you're locked in. And if this project takes, you know, whatever, 10 to 10 years to build, you're locked into that amount, whether the fees increase or not. So there really was no benefit to the town for having this document. So our recommendation is to remove it completely. And I did speak with the applicant and they were fine with that. And then there's one more, which is the drainage maintenance agreement. Sarah had recommended a change because there's a quite a large box culvert within the drainage system. Sarah, can you explain this?
Yes, sorry. They have a large box culvert that is along the entrance road that we just wanted to call out specifically because it is so large. If I was just a resident who happened to live there, I probably would assume that it belongs to the town. But it is not, it's not close to the town right of way. It's not connected to the town drainage. So I just wanted to call it out for future clarification.
And then the other change that Sarah had recommended was in the same document, I'm sorry, in the condominium document under maintenance and repair. Maintenance by the association, there was language added about who is responsible. Do you want to explain that one, Sarah?
Similarly, I just wanted to clarify that they will be responsible for maintenance and repair to the road and that box culvert. And that the town would only be stepping in the event of an emergency.
And I might add that it also provides that if the town does step in, the association will reimburse the town. So she wanted some clarifying language around that, and that has been put in the condominium documents.
Jim, for what it's worth, I reviewed that change and I agree with it.
Okay, thank you, Jim. And I actually, my position, I feel that we had no interest in private property, this condo project, or anyone else's. I don't think we should have any statement that we would go in and fix anything under any circumstances, any more than we would fix my septic system in my yard. If it failed, the town would not come and fix my septic. I'd be responsible for that on my own. So any language that states that the town will bear any responsibility for reimbursement to do any repairs on that property, I feel are improper and wrong. That's just my opinion. We should not be involving ourselves in private matters, and this is a private matter.
I think the intent was that it clearly, I think clearly says that you have the right but no obligation.
Okay, well, thank you.
That was my understanding from the board from the last meeting.
Thank you. All
In
right.
my discussion, just one more comment about that. In my discussion with Adam, he said that he feels that once people live there, the town has some responsibility to them to like keep them safe. So if there was a catastrophic failure, that it's a lot of ifs. It's a lot of ifs. Like if something happened and the association didn't respond, then there is a worst case scenario that those people aren't just going to be told tough luck.
Well, where does the money come from, Sarah?
I'm gonna suggest this is a philosophical discussion. I think we can approve the change as made. I disagree with you, Tim, but I just don't think we need to go down this path. I think the changes are appropriate. They protect the town, particularly because of where this box culvert is located, it does affect town infrastructure. And if we want to have a general discussion, we can do that some other time, but I think we just approve it as amended.
Okay, Jim, we'll schedule that for another time. Okay, any other discussion on any more documents to discuss, Joanne?
No, those are the only documents. If you're opening up the public hearing, we do have correspondence from one of the abutters that you all should have received an email from me this afternoon.
Okay, well, I don't know if everybody checks their email, so at this point at time, I will open up the public hearing. Joanne? Do we have anybody that wants to speak?
So I have people on the phone. I'm going to unmute them. I'm not sure if they're all here for this application, but if there's anyone out there that would like to speak to this application, okay, we have Kathy Prescaza. Kathy, can you hear me? Kathy, can you hear me? Kathy, are you there? I hear her on this phone. That's weird. Hello?
Hello.
Okay.
Hello,
I'm gonna
I'm here and ready to participate.
This isn't
Wow,
working.
wow.
Okay, somebody's coming to help.
You cannot mute the phones there.
She's on here,
I know, but you muted.
so you can't ever
Okay,
mute the
so-
people.
Okay. No, you cannot. You can't.
Hello, can you hear me?
Just a second, Kathy.
Okay, it should.
Okay, I'll wait until you tell me I can speak. I can hear you through the phone. Can you hear me,
everyone hear
Kathy?
Kathy?
Hi, yes. Is this Susan?
No, this is Kathy Hooten.
Oh, hi, Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
Can anybody at the board hear us?
Okay.
Hi, Tim.
Tim, can you hear Kathy? It looks like he's frozen.
I can hear them.
Kathy?
I'm here and ready when you are.
I can hear her, Joanne.
Okay,
Looks like Tim's screen is frozen.
okay, go ahead, Kathy.
Hi there. Good evening. Thank you for hearing me and for your patience with the technology. I know it's difficult sometimes on these remote call-ins. I would like to talk to you about a letter of correspondence that I submitted to the office of the planning board this afternoon. I understand correspondence should happen first thing in the meeting on the agenda. So with that not being said, I will read it now. It's a letter that says, "Dear Ms. Duffy and members of the Goffstown Planning Board, I understand the applicant has submitted revised documents this week for this evening's completeness hearing. In accordance with New Hampshire RSA's regarding notice requirements for public hearings, documents have not been available for public review for the required minimum 10 days. Documents submitted by the applicant within the 10-day timeline creates a serious impairment of opportunity for abutter review and participation. These specific documents contain material differences in content when compared to the documents submitted by the applicant and on file for the original application. I hereby request that the public hearing be postponed until members of the public are afforded the review period permitted by law. Sincerely, Catherine Prescaza." And I'd like a comment from the board and perhaps a vote on that before we enter the public hearing.
please.
Hi, Joanne. I got back into the meeting here. I was out for a little bit. So, you have comment, Joanne, on what Catherine has stated this evening?
Yes, so we did receive the information, or like I said, we were going back and forth with the applicant's attorney for a few days, but we did have everything ready by the 25th, and I sent all of the documents to Kathy. She came in, I think it was yesterday, and asked Patty if there's anything new, and Patty said she hadn't received anything, which was true. There was no additional information. So I'm not exactly sure what information she doesn't have, because I gave her everything that I had. We don't have a rule as far as when someone is found complete and the hearing is continued. There is no rule in our regulations that says the applicant has to have the material back by a certain date. In fact, we tell them that we need it by the Thursday before the meeting if possible. In this case, that was not an option because we only had a week in which to get everything together before it had to be mailed out. So I don't feel that we're in violation of anything as far as the 10-day timeline. There is no 10-day timeline. And I'm not sure what documents were not available because we have all the documents here at the town hall. And I did send electronic copies to Kathy on Tuesday.
All right, Joanne, thank you. Any board members?
Tim, this is Jim. The 10-day notices of the initial application submission, it doesn't carry forward. We gave timely notice when this was brought before us initially, and we accepted it. And in this 676-4, we can continue it to dates certain with no further notice. We've done because when we continued it to a date certain. So I think we've satisfied the notice requirement. I'm also, we control our agenda, how we process our procedure, and I think it's proper for us to go forward.
Any other board members want to weigh in? Okay, so do we need a formal vote on this in the opinion of either Joanne or Jim, who've both weighed in on this, or is this just a matter of our procedure?
No, I don't think we do.
Okay. All right then. Other board members concur? I don't hear anybody saying no. All right, Joanne, so we're going to open the public hearing. As I stated earlier, I got cut out of the meeting for a little bit, but so at this point, the public hearing is open. So if anybody wishes to speak, please come forward and speak.
Tim, I have a procedural question. Are we hearing solely on the compliance issues? That's what was brought before us, and not other matters that may have been addressed previously in the history of this application?
I concur with that. I think that the reason for this additional meeting was strictly for the condo documents that we have in front of us. So that'd be the limit of the discussion for this evening.
Okay, then I'd like to continue with documents, with talking about the documents that are before us.
Go ahead, Kathy, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, Tim. Again, the documents Joanne had said were going back and forth this week, and just getting them on Tuesday does not give us enough time to review all of the documents. But going forward with the pleasure of the board, I would like to talk about the documents were filled in with ownership, contact numbers and names and dates and things like this. And we are concerned that accountability for this condo document and the easements and the responsibilities of this development by the owner are very ambiguous. For example, the Wellesley Drive that Jim Coughlin had on his documents, just up to his recent ones, are no longer active. He hasn't lived there since 1995, according to the town documents. Then it goes to an address that's a P.O. box in Center Harbor. Again, if one was to try to find where he is, there's no accounting there. The ownership of Placid Woods has now changed, so the documents related to Placid Woods and the administrator or the trustee for Placid Woods, which is a law office in Manchester, is no longer valid for this parcel. And now in the application for this compliance hearing, the address has changed to 1225 River Road in Ware, which is a company called C.J. Bolton Company. And that is, it says that this is Jim Coughlin's address, but it's a different company. So again, there's no clarity and really accountability for this project, and that needs to happen. And we're listening carefully to who's going to be responsible for the wetland and the drainage and the proximity to the wetland, and that they were going to take care of this, but yet there really is, it's not clear who that person is. Also, we're concerned about the documents in the condo documents where different sections were removed. Removing impact fees, I think Sarah talked about, and not paying that because you don't know when that's going to happen. I'm not clear on those impact fees and when they're paid and how that's paid, but I do know that when I looked at the conditions precedent, and there was a lot of discussion at the time, there were conditions precedent that were to happen before the subdivision happened, and those were conservation easements to the town and limitations on the development of lot 87-6-1 in particular, and conservation easements that were going to be mapped and were going to be flagged, and there was conversation about what kind of markers there are for conservation easement, and I don't see that reflected on any map or any site plan that is presented as part of these documents. And these are the documents that are to be recorded. That's what we're talking about, completeness for recording at the Registry of Deeds. And in addition to that, sheet number R3 of the engineer's drawing was originally dated, back in 2009. And it had a diagram of the limitations of that parcel at the end of Evergreen Drive, which is 87-6-1, as a single-family house and a well radius. And that has been removed from the document that the applicant had provided as attached to these documents on the last compliance hearing, the first compliance meeting on the 13th of this month. Now, the note he put in the title block on revisions to that drawing say final conditions. And he also says in the document that this is up to 54 additional units possible, or one house and or a duplex. So the words are still in the drawings that are the final documents that are to be recorded at the Registry of Deeds. And Joanne's email to me showed that there were no changes to the drawing, but this is one of the most important components to us on Evergreen Drive as abutters. And we need to know that today and now, if this subdivision, which is a condition precedent before this condo development comes in, that what we're talking about does happen as a single family limitation or duplex limitation, end of story, hard stop. Now, that's critically important, and the documents, the drawings show that the whole theme has been removed from that document. That's important. Also, tonight we learned that there is an abutter development that encroaches on the conservation easement. Again, there's been no flag of where this conservation easement is going to be. There's no legal boundary identified of where this conservation easement is. So then at some point, at some future date, when somebody comes in and clear cuts it and we say, well, where's the boundary of this? We don't know. We don't have tags. We don't have limitations. We don't have a legal description. So this is not ready for prime time yet. This is not ready to be recorded because it's too ambiguous. That's important. Let me turn the page. Also, again, we're limited by time in reviewing this, but 13 units were, the condo documents originally showed 76 single-family owner-occupied dwelling units. And this completeness hearing is to show that this is consistent from what was originally approved from the planning board and the zoning board is what is getting filed. That's the whole purpose for this. And it simply is not, because the condo documents right now show 13 quote-unquote condominium units, which are equal to the 13 buildings that have multiple units. These are to be bought and sold by investors, and that's reflected in the condominium documents because there are sections that talk about mortgagees and investors and the rights and responsibilities of mortgagees and investors to come and inspect their buildings. These are not owner-occupied. This is a development company out of Massachusetts. And let's be clear, this is not first-time home buyers coming in from Goffstown, or of the area. This is from Massachusetts, coming in here to develop in our town and to have subsidized housing in our town. That's what this is. This is not condominium, owner-occupied, pride of ownership. This is something different. And the condo documents are not complying with what was approved. The condo documents were submitted back in 2000 and, I don't know, at least 10 years ago. They're different. The condo documents show 1 of 76 owner percent. The rights are each owner, each dwelling unit has an ownership right and 1/76 of the vote. This one that's currently before you says that it's a percentage of the number of units owned by each investor, and it breaks down to 13 different shares at different percentages based on how many units are in the building. So the people who live there don't have a vote. It's the investors that come from somewhere else that have the votes. And there's no owner occupancy, part of ownership. It's a different animal than what was presented to the board in the very beginning. And as it relates to the process of the zoning and whether this affects our neighborhood or the valuation of it, I feel very strongly that this should have come back to the planning board for that discussion. And analysis, especially now that we see the ownership has changed as a percentage of the number of buildings and the stress that the documents, the condominium documents before you today have on investors and mortgagees. And I'm very concerned. Also, as it relates to these investors, in the condominium documents, I don't know when you guys all saw them, but it talks about each building is expected to be maintained by itself. So they can paint them, they can replace windows, they can do their landscaping. Each building owner is responsible for their own building unit, not as part of the condominium, not as part of common land. It is specific in these condominium documents that it's 1/13 essentially prorated per the number of units in each building, but there is no consensus for common area and maintenance, therefore. And this matters because of the proximity of the wetland and the drainage and the subsurface maintenance, as that drainage system is a new subsurface system that needs to be drained and pumped on a regular basis for it to work correctly. And because of the proximity of that to the water table, you may recall it was within 1/4 of an inch of the elevation, according to the engineer's document, was within 1/4 of an inch of the water table, the outlet. So there is a very real possibility that there will be an issue on that drainage system, especially if all of them are maintaining independent responsibilities for their building. As an abutter, we talked about this evening, I learned about an abutter development encroachment. I don't know what that means. I heard that there was somebody's septic system encroached upon the subject property, and Attorney Manchester, in her opinion, didn't think it was relevant. Well, it's probably really relevant to the abutter, and it should be marked on a document so that that abutter becomes aware of it and some arrangement can be made. It might be me, it might be my neighbor, it might be somebody on the other side. We don't even know. Nobody said whose property this was. I'm quite certain it's not mine because mine is quite inboard from the property line in the woods. But, you know, this whole issue about not having time, 10 days, to review these documents is very upsetting, especially now that we know that the developer knows that there's an encroachment, but they're just going to gloss over that. That's not okay. I think that's all that I have to say this evening. I know that this has been before the town for a very long time, but these documents need to be reviewed. And when they say there are no changes to the drawings, and there blatantly are changes to the drawings that reflect a difference as it relates to one of the conditions precedent, it's important, and it gives me cause to want to look through these drawings from top to bottom. There are 35 drawings in this building set, this site plan set, and I haven't had a chance to review what has changed or what has not changed. It is industry standard when there's a change that you bubble it in and you date it. There is no bubble on this. This got blended in here in January of 2020-21, according to the note. There may very well be additional documents on here that have similar things that we just have not been afforded knowledge to review. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Kathy. Joanne, is anyone else that wants to speak at the public hearing?
is there anyone else there on the phone that would like to speak to
Yes,
this hearing?
Yes. Yes.
All right, could you
Yes.
please,
What is
Could you please-
the last 3 digits of your phone number?
2324, those are the last 4 digits.
2324. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, my name is Kathy Hooten. I'm a butter for this property, and I want to say hi to all of you because you all know who I am. I live on 112 Mountain Road, and I am been in a butter, and I have been in opposition of this development for probably 20 years. I am very concerned that I have no knowledge of any change that is going to occur on 87-6-1. I am very concerned that language is being changed that we have not been able to review in a timely manner. I'm very concerned that this is actually an application that should have been denied because after 2 years of no substantial development, this should have been denied and this application should have been reapplied in a formal manner. This is not acceptable as a continuation of an application. Hold on. A continuation of an application is unacceptable at this point. There are too many changes. And according to the state laws, there had been no substantial development for 2 years, and as quoted by one of your own members, this should never have continued after 2 years. Another point I want to make is that the AOT permit expired. One of
Kathy,
your members at the last meeting mentioned that. That is
Kathy?
something that,
Kathy, if I may, Kathy, this evening's discussion is about the declarations and the covenants for the
Okay.
condo documents. We are not going to
Okay.
rehash the whole project over again. So please confine your comments to the documents that we're discussing this evening, please.
well, I do want to say that I agree with Kathy Prescaza that this particular, all these changes were at the 12th, 11th hour, and you know, it would be one of the only times, Mr. Chairman, that the planning board has never allowed us the opportunity and timeliness to review such changes in such detail. I find it, I find it very concerning that when somebody gets information only a few days before the meeting, 2 days before the meeting. Hold on, I've got to change phones because I'm losing it. That you don't, are you there?
Yes, we're listening, Kathy.
That you are not allowing us at this point to have adequate time to review them. I don't know what a continuation for another week or two would make a difference here. It makes a big difference to the abutters, and it should make a big difference to the board, and it should make a big difference to the applicant. Because if we're all trying to get to yes here, we ought to work together and respect each other's requests, and we ought to respect who we are. As far as the drainage is concerned, Kathy had stated everything so perfectly. And if you have all these different owners of all these individual buildings, who is going to say who's going to pay if that drainage system fails? And for the record, I would like the planning board to please define for me what is a condominium form as it is stated in this application and this notification. It's a condominium form, a form of a condominium. Separate ownership of individual properties. And when did a condominium owner only have to pay 30% of the annual maintenance income, AMI, as stated by HUD? This is not a condominium. This is far from a condominium. And I would like the planning board to define in their own language, what the interpretation of condominium form is. As I go in through my notes, again, you can't have 13 buildings owned separately that house multifamily people who are supplemented by HUD and call it a condominium complex. I don't think that would stand in the state RSAs come hell or high water. So I think you need to go back, and I think you really need to reconsider. This is not, we are nowhere near accepting this application. You should take the high road, should deny the application as it is, and you should have the applicant come in under the RSAs and statutes of the state and have him reapply. We have trustees that are involved here. We have no knowledge of who those trustees are. How do we know if there is any conflict of interest with the ownership trustees that are on this plan with any member of the board? We don't, because we can't access who the trustees are. And we have asked who they are, and we have been denied that. We have the right to know who owns this property. And if a trustee is involved in it, who are they? Who are they? How do I know maybe one of you aren't on there, to be honest with you? These are very, very, very important issues. Issues where notes say that we have conservation property on that property, and yet we don't have it anymore. We have conservation easements that have disappeared. What's going on here? What is it that we have to go so quickly? We've done this for 20 years. Why are we now rushing this through? Because a developer from outside this town wants to make money? What about our neighborhood? What about the traffic? What about the traffic study that nobody's seen? But yet they were able to deny my rehearing for a zoning board, and they used one of the two conditions for the denial based upon a traffic study nobody has seen. A failed intersection is a failed intersection. The improvements on that intersection haven't improved it. So what I'm saying to you right now is that we need to start this over. We need to have him reapply. We need to stop all of this for once and for all. And we need to listen to what the state says about developments that have not substantially done any development for over 2 years. And if you want to go forward with this and you want to continue with this, I am laying out onto you areas that will be addressed. But I do request for the record that the planning board or the town selectmen state exactly what the meaning of form of condominium is as it relates to this development. And until I receive that, as an abutter, I request that this board continue this hearing of compliance, which will allow us the time to review the changes that have been made, that have been presented tonight, and allow all of us to discuss this in a more professional, knowledgeable manner. I thank you for your time, and I look forward to discussing this with you further.
Thank you, Kathy. Joanne, do we have anyone else?
I have one question. I have one question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Kathy.
I have one question for you, Tim. Tim, did you ever work for Chris Bolton?
You are asking questions that are irrelevant and immaterial at this time, Kathy.
I don't feel it is, Tim, because I think that there could be a conflict there, and I would like that question answered.
I'm not answering any questions on the record right now.
I would like that question to stay on the record, and at some time when you feel it's appropriate, I would appreciate that response. That's my final. Thank you.
Joanne, what's next?
Okay, so the applicant, I'm sure, would like to speak.
Joanne, this is Derek. We still have members of the public that would wish
Oh,
to,
I'm sorry.
heard.
Yes, there are members of the public there are additional members of the public that would like to speak. And Derek's setting that up right now.
Oh, there you are.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is Dana Benner. Live on 12 Joffrey Street in Parnardville. And I'm not in a butter, but I'm sitting in here at Town Hall watching this because we have an upcoming case of our own. And I just wanted to applaud both Kathys for calling you folks out for what you are. I noticed that Mr. Raymond walked away and didn't even pay attention while Ms. Triscara was.
Tim, I'm sorry, but I think this is totally inappropriate and out of order.
Appropriate. It's appropriate.
Okay, fine. You don't want to hear the truth?
Yeah, I want to speak.
No.
Also.
Mr. Benner,
Yes,
Mr. Benner,
yes,
this is the chair speaking.
yes, I understand that.
We welcome your comments.
Yeah,
We do not welcome criticism the way you presented it this evening that about someone walking away. How do you know that man didn't have to do something else that was important? You don't know.
because he was,
Oh,
because he
please.
was sitting there. Oh, please? Okay, fine.
Chairman,
Go
I
ahead.
have my documents spread over a big table. I am looking at them off the screen. I am paying attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Mr. Benner, you're welcome to speak. I just want you to make sure your comments are appropriate and confined to the matter, please.
Okay, all right, I'll continue to be really brief. Both Kathys brought up a lot of good points there, and we're seeing that throughout our town. A lot of this stuff is happening out of town, people, whether they're coming from Florida or Massachusetts or wherever, investing and disregarding our neighborhoods. The thing with this condo thing, obviously, both Kathys did their homework. And this is a HUD-funded project, which means it's low-income housing, which means that our school taxes are going to go right through the roof because the property owners of this town are going to be the ones that are going to be paying the taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Derek, is there anyone else down there that would like to speak?
No, there's nobody else that wishes to speak.
Okay, thank you.
So we're
So-
gonna close the
Yeah.
public hearing.
Well, before you do that, the applicant is also online. I'm not sure if they want to say anything or not.
Well, I would like to say just a few things. One is, we have every intention of complying with all of the conditions precedent. Some of those conditions will be met via documentation. Some of them will met via payment of impact fees. Some of them will be met by changes to plans. The applicant has every expectation and intends to comply with all of those covenants. We disagree that there is no legal description of the conservation easement. It is there. I understand that the people who are speaking do not, I believe from what I've heard, I'm new to this file, but it appears to me that their concern is not so much with the project as it is with the composition of the people who will be living there. Affordable housing is important, and it's good for the town. It's needed by the town. And Dakota, yes, is a Massachusetts entity. They do affordable housing in New Hampshire and other states, and they will bring a good product to this town. Thank you.
Joanne?
I just wanted to say one thing, that there was discussion about the fact that the conservation easement has not yet been shown on the plan. The plans have not been submitted, the final plans for signature. We're still working with Eric Mitchell's office on that. And now that we have the description, or we will have the description that you decide on tonight, he can then incorporate that information onto the plan set.
So is anyone else via the public? I'm going to close the public hearing.
Tim, I'm going to make a motion. If you close the public hearing.
Is there any other, and, okay, before you, the floor is yours, Jim. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, I'm going to move that we accept the documents as amended, including the deletion of the development agreement, and we approve the condominium form of ownership, which is a subdivision under our regs and statute and requires our approval. And that we recommend, or we find that the documents as presented involving property interests and others are acceptable to be submitted to the select board.
Carlos, did you second that?
Yes.
Okay, because my computer went off. I didn't get that. Okay, the motion's been made and been seconded.
Yeah, we have to amend that in that I'm sorry, we choose on the conservation easement deed, the description option that's labeled larger with encroachments.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that clarification, Jim. I will second still. Did we lose Tim again?
You don't hear
Oh,
here
okay.
anymore. So
You wanna take
Kimberly,
a
you
vote?
may have to take over if there's a void. So there's been a motion made.
Kimberly, why don't you take over?
Okay. This is Kimberly. So we have a motion on the floor. Let's go
And
around.
seconded to accept.
So I vote yes.
So
Somebody's
Tim, are
gonna
you
call
there?
the roll.
Tim, are you there? It doesn't sound like it. I'll just go through the names on here. Collis,
Yes.
David Pierce,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Kimberly has already voted, and Tim, we're not sure if he's there, and Phil.
Yes.
Okay, it was unanimous, and Tim, I guess we'll just abstain unless he comes back.
I'm voting no based on my discussion.
Are you voting in the affirmative, Tim?
Can you hear me, Joanne?
You keep breaking up.
Joanne, this is Derek. Tim needs to disable his video.
Okay. Let me see, let me send him a text.
My statements about DPD.
Tim, I sent you a text.
Tim just-
WNSP.
Joanne, Tim just
Yes.
messaged me and he said
He's
he's
involved.
voting no.
He said what?
He said he's voting no. I don't know if you want to include that or not.
Oh, sure, okay.
No, that is not an acceptable, this is Derek again. That is not an acceptable form of voting. We can't be texting members and having votes that way. Tim needs
He's
to
trying to get
disable
back
his.
in.
Okay.
I sent him a text to disable his video, but he hasn't responded. Okay, why don't we just move on to the next item on the agenda?
Well, let's have the acting chair, as Kimberly, declare that a vote has been taken, so we have it on the record.
Okay.
Wait, I'm not sure that we've completed the vote. We don't know what Tim's vote is officially, according to Derek.
Well, if he's
Well, I
just.
think at this time it would just be an abstention because he's not here.
I would differ, Joanne. I would say he's unable to participate in the meeting remotely, so he did not vote.
Okay.
Until such time that he gets back on, if you're still actively taking a vote, then he could vote. But if he is unable to vote, then it's not an abstention. It just isn't a vote.
Okay. So it doesn't look like he's able to get back on. So Kimberly, I would just call the vote. It was unanimous in the affirmative.
I'm really uncomfortable with this, knowing that Tim's vote is no, and that we can't put it on the record.
So Tim just left the meeting. Looks like he's coming back.
Okay, I'm back in the meeting, I think.
Okay,
There we
Tim.
go.
I voted no on that application based on my comments regarding DPW's involvement if there's a problem on site.
Okay. So the vote was, what, 6-1. Okay, do you want to move on to the next application?
Close the vote.
Close the vote?
Tim needs to announce that he has received all the votes and he announces it. Where is our chairman?
I'm right here. I heard Joanne say that everyone voted in the affirmative, and I wanted to be sure that I voted in the negative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is David.
Okay. So do you want to move on to the next application now?
So are we done with this application for tonight then?
Yes.
Thank you. So yes, we'll move on to the next application.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Manchester.
Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Joanne, the next new business is map 18, lot 16, 17 and 16A.
Yes.
Could you please give everyone a rundown on the application?
So the application had asked for a continuance, and they are here tonight for the completeness review. What they'd like to do is to take the house that is on Hague Street, the corner of Hague Street and Mass Road. It's zoned commercial, and convert that house into a laundromat. The garage itself for the home would be removed, and they would have a driveway that would come off of Hague Street, go into the site, and then share access with the with the car wash property. It would be the same owner, and they would be able to go back and forth between the two properties. The car wash is also proposing some changes. They're looking to change out the vacuums. There's currently
David
7.
Pierce.
Hello?
Go ahead, Joanne. I heard David
David
say
on
his name.
There's currently 7. There's currently vacuums in the front of the car wash, as well as the back portion of the car wash, and they're proposing to replace those vacuums with the newer version where they have the large handles that go up in the air like 5 or 6 feet, or I'm sorry, 6 to 8 feet, and they would replace both the sets and replace it with these newer type vacuums. They were asking for a waiver for landscaping and screening, but they have since provided a landscaping and They have since provided a landscaping and lighting plan. They don't propose any new landscaping. They're trying to use the existing landscaping that is there, which meets the requirements. So a waiver is really not needed. They do need a conditional use permit to allow for an existing driveway onto Joffrey Street, which is currently there, but the use is changing and it's going from a two-way to a one-way. They, and it's too close to the intersection. It's closer than the required 125 feet. They also need access from Hague Street, which is closer to the existing driveway of the residential structure next door. So that's 2 conditional use. And then they need another one for permitting the shared parking. The amount of parking spaces required does not meet the requirements of our ordinance for the laundromat. And they will need to share some spaces between the 2 parcels. So they're asking for a conditional use permit for that. The grand total number of spaces required is 29, and the car wash has 31, and the laundromat has 5. So they're above the requirement for the 2 combined, but not separate. So that's another conditional use. And we have lots of other comments, but what my recommendation is for this evening is to take a look at the plan. It is complete. Take a look at the plan, hear from the abutters, hear any comments that you may have. And then I have a list of recommendations for them to go back and change on page, it starts on page 18. And then I'm actually recommending that it be continued to June 24th. But this is their first time presenting, so I'd like to give them a chance to present and hear from the comments before we move forward to the 24th.
Thank you, Joanne.
Mr. Chair, this is Kimberly. I have a question.
Go ahead, Kimberly.
My company, Hall Tanner and Associates, performed the traffic study. I am not a part of that division of our company. Do you want me to excuse myself for this?
I see no reason unless someone else feels like it. You need to recuse yourself.
Nor do I, Tim. This is Collis.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. At this time, I think we need a motion regarding the completeness and review aspect of the application.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we find it's complete, and there's no regional impact, and we accept it subject to consideration of any waiver requests. I guess there is no waiver request, there's just a conditional use.
Correct.
No, there is a waiver, no longer needed.
But it does,
Well,
it's not needed.
Well, we'll keep the phrasing, any waivers, so if there are any, we can address them. If there's none, we don't have to.
Okay, motion to accept is complete and ready to review with waiver. Discussion, any second?
I'll second, Kimberly.
Thank you, Kimberly. We'll have a roll call vote on the motion. Kimberly?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Collis?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
David? Jim?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So Joanne, do we have any questions from board members before we open this up to the applicant's representative? Any board members have questions? Okay, well, Joanne, does we have an applicant who wants to speak tonight?
Yes, Eric Mitchell is on the video.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Eric Mitchell. My office prepared this plan. Joanne had gone through a good synopsis of what we have going before you tonight. For those members who have been on the board or for quite some time, the last time this was before the board was in 2018. We had very similar plans, but at one point the traffic study was requested to be done. We had not had it done. We had asked for a continuation, and it was decided by the board that they didn't want to continue it again until the traffic study was done. They asked us to come back when that was done. Since that point in time, the applicant has continued to look at his options and what he wants to do with the project. And what we came back with you on this application is similar, but there are some changes that were made to the plans which are different than what were done in 2018. Relative to the traffic, the applicant did pay for the town's review consultant to review the traffic. There was a traffic study already done for the owner by his consultant, and that was submitted to the town, and the town did have it reviewed by their consultant, and response came back, and I believe that all of their questions that they have been addressed on the plan. That's relative to traffic, and that's one reason why this thing was stopped a couple of years ago. In terms of what we're proposing here, the existing car wash is there. We're not really proposing changes to that. There has been changes that were suggested for the vacuum systems in that. That seems to be a big concern for the project relative to either noise or hours of operation or whatever. What the applicant has decided to do is to leave the vacuums numbers the way they are today, not to increase any of the vacuums from what they had proposed. The vacuums today have islands where the vacuums are on them in between the spaces. All that he will be doing is taking those vacuum motors that are on the islands and put them onto the post in front of the vacuum spots, and then have booms that will go to actually use in the vacuums. There will not be a central vacuum. There will not be a place where one big unit is there that may have noise to it. That is not going to be there. All that we'll be doing is taking the same number of vacuums he has now and just putting them on a pole and taking the islands out that are in between. So on the car wash itself, there's very little happening with the car wash on this proposal if the vacuums are staying the same, they're just being mounted differently. In terms of the laundromat that we proposed, it is in the existing residential house, which has been vacant. It is proposed to put a laundromat in there, which has about 20 washing machines and about 10 dryers. Those numbers are a little bit flexible, only because washing machines, as I understand it, according to the applicant, come in different sizes. There's some that are twice the size or can handle twice the amount of laundry and washing than what other ones are, and the dryers can also handle some more than others. But generally speaking, the way that a lot of laundromats do operate is that the dryers can usually take twice as much clothes for drying than what the washing machines can. So what we have shown, and there were floor plan that was submitted with the application that showed about 20 washing machines and about 10 dryers that are there. There's also been questions that have come up about venting, and the building itself, which is a ranch style house, currently has a front door that comes out to Hague Street. That will be closed off. There will be no door out to Hague Street. The only access into the laundromat will be from the car wash side. So that the walkway that is existing now that is on the Hague Street Drive, that'll come out. The dryers will have their exhaust fans on the Hague Street side, and we'll put crushed stone down so any dripping or anything coming down that will not harm any landscaping. And there will not be any place where people will be walking there, because what isn't crushed stone will be grass. There's no walkways along the Hague Street side of the property. which is currently now the front of the building. The proposal for the laundromat building itself, it's a ranch-style house with a single-car garage. The garage will come down, so the ranch-style portion of the house will house the laundromat. We have a one entrance in off of Hague Street, which is a one-way enter into the project, and that'll go into the site. On the site itself, there is existing exit onto Mass Road, which is a right turn only, which will still stay the same. Currently, they're on Joffrey Street. There is on the front up near Mass Road, there's an entrance into the laundromat, into the car wash. That is an entrance and an exit by the light there. We are proposing to have that be an exit only, so no cars will come in off of Mass Road and perhaps have to sit and wait to turn to get into the site. Has been and will still remain an access into the rear of the car wash, which would be entrance and exit as well. The site itself will be shared. We'll provide cross easements. The two parcels are meant to be held in different ownership and separate ownership. There is an easement, I believe, already in place for the access to Mass Road for the car wash across property of the laundromat. And we will provide additional cross easements for shared parking as well as access ways. In terms of the parking, it is meant to be shared between the units. The hours of operation are intended to be the same as what's in the car wash. And I believe the car wash is 6 to 10. I believe that's what it is. So that the site itself will be managed, even though it's two separate owners, will be managed by the same people. So those that will be managing the car wash will also manage the laundromat. So when it's time to close up both of them, they'll be closed up by the employees on site for that. So with that, be glad to answer any questions or take any comments that you might have. And I'd also like to say that Attorney Andrew Sullivan is here representing the client. If you have any questions relative to easements or anything else for him to chime in on. Thank you.
Board members, questions for the applicant? Okay, I'll start. Eric, if you're going to use the existing site plan for the vacuum setups, did I hear you correctly?
That is correct.
So how does that affect your parking calculations? Because now I see a lot less parking spots that you showed on your page 1 site plan versus your page 3 existing conditions plan, where the vacuums are. So how's that going to affect your parking calculation?
Yeah, if you look at the sheet number 1, that's what the proposal is. So although we had showed, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 vacuums in the front, and existing, I believe there's 2, 4, 6. So the plan that you're seeing today, that you have, that was submitted, did have more vacuums in the front than what is existing. But as a discussion with the owner today, they decided just to maintain the same number of vacuums that they have now. So if there was 6 currently, there'll only be 6, so that the area for parking spaces on the up towards Mass Road, which will be service the laundromat, there's at least 3 spaces there that'll service the laundromat. There has been a request that we identify the spaces by numbers, which will do that. And anytime that we have easements, they'll be identified by the parking space numbers, and so it'll be clearer. The short answer is we're going to not increase the number of vacuums. So what you see on sheet 1 for the number of vacuums will be less than what is shown on sheet 1.
Thank you. Other board members? Okay. Joanne, do you have anything else we need to discuss as a board before we move to the next step?
No, I think Eric's clear on what we need from him for the next meeting, and I'll probably, Sarah and I will have another meeting with him just so we're all set to make sure those comments that were listed will be addressed by Ben. So I don't have anything right now.
So would it be appropriate to open the public hearing now then?
Yes.
Okay, at this time, we're going to open the public hearing. So Joanne, I'm going to let you,
Okay.
I'm
I'm
going to let
sorry.
you, I want to let you handle the people and identifying people individually. So, because I don't have a screen up that shows me anything anymore. I can only hear your voices.
Okay, so the first person who would like to speak is Norman LaFond, who is an abutter. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Hello. My name is Norman LaFond. I am calling you through Sorensen Video Relay. I am deaf, and I live on the corner of Hague, and I am 100% opposed. 100% opposed. I remember 3 years ago, there were so many people who signed a petition against this, and I'm incredibly concerned. And I don't know if we remember, but where I lived on that street there, that exact street that they're saying garden, it became similar to a dead end at times. I am concerned again because I live here. I'm deaf, and the traffic and the accidents that were caused about it becoming a one-way and all that being discussed, I don't know how that could possibly be enforced. We've seen time and time again people ignore one-ways, and I don't quite understand how this is supposed to work and keep the traffic enforced. So I know you're not voting about that tonight. I know that's not on the table, but this issue for the community, it needs to be discussed more, and it needs to be really addressed how it's going to impact the residents around that area. Honestly, everything proposed is a little frightening to me as somebody who lives nearby. I'm sure my neighbor, Bob, and my neighbor down the street, all three of us are opposed. I don't know if they're apart this evening, but everyone who lives nearby this proposed site is in fair agreement that we are opposed to it. We would prefer that house to stay there. The renovations needed for that, for it to become what it has to be, are going to be an issue. We can, have that house become a residential or keep a residential space. Because I don't know if you remember 3 years ago, they talked about turning it into a coffee shop. And a laundry shop, I apologize, a laundry shop. We have a laundromat already here, right down the street. So what's the point of having two with all that this will bring? It needs to be kept as a residential house. It needs to be renovated and needs to have someone renting it. And that is my opinion, and I'm sure many people in the community agree.
Thank you, sir. Joanne?
Okay, there are people in the room. Is there anyone downstairs who would like to speak?
Are you speaking?
Please state your name and your address for the record, please. Everyone.
My name is Ann Scarborough. I live at 3 Hague Street, directly across from this proposed site. I have several concerns. First of all, I'm again 100% opposed to this. Some of the reasons are, one, the driveway entering the laundromat is directly in front of my driveway. You say now it's a one-way. I don't know how that's going to be enforced. Two, the proposed fencing on the end of the property for laundromat and the lot that the Dions own goes from the back end of the laundromat, back end of the car wash, the very front of Hague Street. Looks like nearly on the road. There is no way they're going to be able to get out of their driveway. Turn to the right, left, and see if anything's coming. 3, there is an exit right beside the proposed laundromat. That is an exit that is used by the car wash. It says there will be no left turn. Many people take left turns coming out of there. There is no stop sign. I have been nearly hit because that exit is only a house width from Hague Street. When I am trying to pull out of Hague Street, or if I'm trying to pull in from Hague Street from Mast Road, cars come whipping out of that supposed one-way, no left turn exit. And many other people have had near collisions because of that. Another point that was just mentioned tonight, the dryers vents will be facing Hague Street, which means they will be facing my house. There's no way I'm not going to hear that. I hear the car wash as it is. We were told in the very beginning with the car wash, you're not going to hear anything. We can hear distinctly the voice from the little box saying, please insert your money. You know, please go into, you can hear it clearly. So for then again to have vents coming out right in front of my house, you can't tell me I'm not going to hear that. Something else.
The parking.
The parking. It's stated, I'm wondering if part of the parking that is being counted are the stacked cars going in to the car wash. Are those being considered parking places?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no way there's 31 spots on that property. I think
Do you
that
want me
would,
to answer that?
oh, sure.
According to our ordinance and our development regulations, those parking spaces that are within the building itself, as well as the stacking, are included as parking spaces. And that's in accordance with our regulations.
So we'll encourage people to park inside the building. Yeah, that's fine. I'll just go park my car in there.
So they can park there?
Park it inside.
So I could go and inside that bay and right in front of the bay and park?
It's not necessarily someone's that is parking, they're sitting in their car moving through, but our regulations consider that as parking. Just as for a gas station, the people who are pulled up to the pumps, that's considered part of the parking calculations when figuring out whether they have enough parking.
Okay.
It's standard. It's not anything unusual for this town.
Do you go to an adjacent property to count?
Okay, okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Gonna be elaborated on.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Mrs. Scarborough.
You're welcome.
My name is Chris Gregoire. I'm on 8 Hague Street. I've been going through all this, and you say that it's all regulations about the parking. You can count the stacked parking spots. But for the laundromat, they need parking. You can't tell me they're going to park inside the stall, go inside for an hour to wash their laundry while their car's sitting taking up a spot so nobody can pull in and out of the laundromat. How is that realistic? I understand it's a regulation, but it's not real world. It doesn't make any sense. How can you count 30? I walk my dog by there every single day of the week. You can't tell me there's enough place for 31 people to park and go inside the laundromat. you can't, people in and out like that going into the car wash, you can't count those as a parking spot. On paper, yes, but in the real world, no. So it just doesn't make any sense. There's not enough parking, sitting parking spots for somebody to sit, park their car and go inside the laundromat. Not 31 spaces worth. This doesn't make any sense. That's what I'll have.
Thank you, Mr. Gregoire.
Mr. Chairman, this is Eric Mitchell. May I speak?
This is public comment, and we accept public comment. For the record, we do not debate in public comment, Eric. So I think we just accept public comment at this point. And if you'd like to talk about some points that these people have made, we can make them at a later date.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kyle Burton, and I live at 5 Hague Street. So I'm just across from the property, proposed laundromat. To add to the parking thing and the example of a gas station, I don't believe most gas stations have an adjacent property being used in that calculation. So while we can use that, it's not an apples to apples comparison. So that's one. A while back in 2018, I noticed in the state statutes, there's a provision that says that you're not supposed to construct a property that increases the fire rating of adjacent properties. And while I don't know if that's the case right here, that question has never actually been addressed. With all the resistive heating done, with the dryers, we're talking probably 30,000 watts of power. If we're doing an average. So I don't know if that's been done, but considering I live nearby and, the rest of us do, I would like that question addressed regarding the fire rating because it is a state statute. The water issue I'd noticed, it says that sewage was all hooked up and everything, but in Pinardville, we have a unique situation. So at least for my bill, I get Goffstown water, but I get Manchester sewage. So my question is, has the city of Manchester been brought in the loop on this for the potential impact of all the water that's going to be coming out of these machines? Because that's a concern of mine too as well, because there's going to be a lot of water coming out of there. And then also, again, to the traffic study, I would hope that the public would have access to the traffic study. I am not an engineer. I do hold a master's in chemistry and I can understand scientific information. So I would like to have access, the public to have access to that traffic study for critique, because after all, they're professional judgments, but it should be something that we can all see. Because just the other day, we're New Englanders. I think most of us probably stop by Dunk's, at least once a week. That Dunkin' Donuts right there regularly has traffic sitting on Mast Road. And I can't imagine that this is going to be, a recipe for something good right there. The other thing was with regard to the, I don't know what the official legalese language is for the exceptions that are being done for the spacing where the entrance and the exits are going. But as I understand it, I believe, and at least like somebody to check this, I think the state statute also requires that the board publicly vote on that or state their position, I guess, or something to that effect, on allowing such exceptions. So if that is the case, I at least want that on the record. At least folks could check that. So if we are making an exception and you're supposed to be on the record for that exception, I would like people to do that. With that, I think I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burton.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Robert Scarborough. I live on 3 Hague Street also. I just want to let you know, a year ago, I went out and I got 130 names of people that did not want a laundromat in this area. And then this year, I went up again twice in I don't know how long a time to go up, and I got 30 names. Everybody on Hague Street does not want this laundromat. It's a nightmare to get out on Hague Street. I've talked to even Patty Gale, because she lives off of Mass Road, and she's one of your constituents. And she says the same thing. It's hard to get out on the street. I go visit my buddy on Morrill Street, and I try to take a left. I can't. I have to take a right, and then go up to another street to take a right to go left to go down the Mass Road. And that entrance on the right-hand side that my wife was speaking about is dangerous. Because if you get in there and try to take a left and there's cars keep piling up, they don't care if you're trying to get out of the street. And this guy comes right out on the right-hand side. You can't get out again. That's the second time you can't get out. So my opinion is we don't want a laundromat. He has a gentleman living in there now, a nice old man living in there. The place should be fixed up and just rented out, and everything would be fine. Nobody wants this laundromat. So that's my opinion. That's what I want to put through tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You guys are gonna love me. Dana Bennard, 12 Joffrey Street. I promise to civil this. This whole thing has become a fiasco. And just to make sure I got everything straight, I actually visited Derek's office the other day and asked him to explain the plan to me so I would fully understand what was going on. Because I didn't want to say anything off the cuff. And upon review of this, it's a very busy plan. Even combining both properties, that's a very small area. And it looks good on paper. Nothing works out as planned. Numerous times, people in this room have said that nobody obeys the rules as they are now. And that's true. Payne Street, Joffrey Street, and now Hague Street, one-way street. You can't walk down the sidewalk without almost getting run over either by Dunkin' Donuts, by the car wash, or now you get the laundromat. Going up and down the street when they get frustrated at the car wash, turning around people's driveways. Going to happen with the laundromat when they can't find a parking space. It's ridiculous. When you look at it and people say, people come in, they're going to line up, they're going to stack up in front of the car wash and counting the car in the car wash as parking, totally ridiculous, but they are. Nobody can get to the back parking spaces. If any of you folks have ever driven down on a 40-degree winter day, everybody's getting their car washed to get the salt off, you can't get onto Joffrey Street. And there's no possible way a fire truck or an ambulance or a police cruiser could get in there because the people are stacked up and there may be 5 or 6 people stacked up on the very first bay and the other 2 bays are empty. Nobody working there directing the traffic saying, hey, move over. If somebody wanted to go to use the vacuum cleaners, they can't get in there because Joffrey Street's blocked by people back all the way down to Mass Road. So the idea of people are going to be perfectly stacked up 1 foot behind each other in front of those bays, it's not going to happen. You got to use some common sense here. Just because something it can be done doesn't mean it should be done. Now, I already covered that. Endangering pedestrian traffic. I walk with my granddaughters with my dog up Joffrey Street. I've had people get pissed off trying to get into the car wash, fly up Joffrey Street, which is a one-way street, which is all residential except for right down on the corner, and almost hit us. So what are we going to do about that? You can't have the cops there 24/7 because inside that laundromat, there are people there after 8 o'clock, after 10 o'clock at night. The back vacuums operate after 8 o'clock, even though the ordinance says they are supposed to shut down, because there is nobody working there to make sure it gets shut down. They sit out in that parking lot, they blast music, they do all sorts of things. More than once, I've asked people to not do that. Trying to be the great, nice, friendly neighbor, and I get it up the wazoo. So, that's not gonna happen. These people are not gonna obey the little rules that we set up here. And they haven't obeyed them since then. There's garbage usually thrown all over the place. My front lawn looks like the transfer station. I got plastic bottles, I got face masks, I got everything. These people come and dump all their household garbage in the garbage cans there, and they don't get empty for a week. So then you get the raccoons and everything else picking through it, and it scatters all over the place. Now we're talking about two-way traffic in front of the car wash. How idiotic is that? You got people coming out of the car wash. Their car is all covered with water. They're doing their thing. They come out, and Joe Snuffy decides he's going to pull into the laundromat and decide he's going to go the two-way, shoot right straight in front of the exit to the wash bay. Accident right there. How about when someone parks to go into the laundromat and decides to back out, and people don't always look where they're backing. They back straight out into a two-way traffic zone. Wintertime, that is an ice skating rink right there. The corner of Joffrey and Mast Road. Cars get washed. They go out, they sit at the light, their water drips on the road. It turns into a sheet of ice. I have gone through that red light more than once. Now, I only live 2 houses up Joffrey Street, so it's not like I'm building up a whole heck of a lot of head of steam to get to Mast Road. But I end up out in traffic. That's what that parking lot's going to look like. People are going to come, people are going to go. They're going to be going one way. They're proposing two-way in front of those bays. That's an accident looking for a place to happen. You better have the ambulances on speed dial, because that's what's going to end up happening. Snow removal. Now, when you get a nice winter, they plow the snow. Now you've lost half your parking spaces. And the melt off from that snow is going to cause ice. Again, common sense. Just because it can be done doesn't mean it should be done. There's a lot of people affected here, and unfortunately, this is another case of people who own the property who don't live here and see it as a dollar sign and not as the people that have lived here for 35 years. I've lived here for 35 years. There's people behind me that lived here for over 40 years. So, this is our home. I'm not living in Naples, Florida, looking at my spreadsheets, looking at how much money I'm making. I don't live in a very fancy place, but it's my home. And I moved here because I wanted to live here. But this is not what I moved in here for. Come on. The board is our elected officials. You guys are supposed to be representing us. Representing all the people in Goffstown when you're making these decisions, because it's going to come back and bite, and I don't want to be around when it does. Thank you.
Hi, my name is
Thank you, Mr. Benner.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Katie Benner. This is Dana Benner's wife, and I also live on 12 Joffrey Street. And I'm asking respect, okay? Respect for longtime homeowners, respect for single-family homeowners, okay? And I'm also going to put in the petition that Mr. Scarborough was talking about, the 135 names that he collected back in 2018 for a similar plan. All these people, okay, they were beyond Hague and Hague and Joffrey Street, the streets that mainly affect. There were other people from Patain Street and Mass Road that signed this that did not want it. Okay, this year, okay, Mr. Scarborough also went out and he got, I think, what, 35, 40 signatures, okay, on another petition, same thing, we don't want this. And I went out and I got about 50, okay, signatures on a petition that we don't want this, all right? And also, to elaborate on the parking, my grandchild would say, Mimi, you can't go park inside the bay of the car wash, leave your car there, take your basket, and go to the laundromat. It just doesn't make sense. There's more exceptions to the rule than there are regular requirements. Okay, it doesn't meet the regular requirements. There's more exceptions, so it doesn't make sense. And the gentleman that owns, okay, this car wash and also this single-family home, he's not even a resident of Bernardville or Goffstown. He lives in Naples, okay, in a beautiful home. And you don't see a laundromat in his backyard. If you want to see it closely, he has an enclosed pool in his backyard. Okay, I'm not saying anything that he shouldn't be making money, nothing against making money, but it shouldn't be with things that are going to hurt us. And all these things that are being brought into Bernardville, we're being dumped on. Okay, I Googled the 10 worst places to live in New Hampshire. And would you believe Bernardville is on the list, number 8? We were never on this list before, but everything's being dumped on us. Okay, right on Joffrey Street. Okay, we have 5 properties that Mr. Paris owns, okay? Well, 5 businesses that he rents out to, I should say. Okay, there's a body shop, there's also an auto mechanic shop, there's a towing, okay, company right in back of my yard, okay? And there's also a sales car, they sell cars, and there's an empty building, so who knows what's gonna be there. So that's a lot, yes. Okay, I'm also, this is all regarding this. Okay, we already have 5 businesses on this side of the street, and now you want to add a laundromat where the car wash is also? It doesn't make sense.
Please ask you to find your comments to this project, please.
It is. It all has everything pertaining. Okay, I'm just asking for time to put my information through here. Okay, we've listened to you folks. We've sat here. We were supposed to be first on the list. Okay, and we waited an hour and a half. So please at least let me have a chance to speak my piece. Okay. Also, when you Google 03102, you will, on the sex offenders list, you will see at least there's 21 sex offenders that are 2.5 miles or less. This is the type of service that will
I think this is an irrelevant comment.
Okay, I don't think so because, okay, we all have washing machines. Okay, the immediate community all has washing machine and dryers. It's a business that we don't need. Okay, we don't need a business like that because we have them. And we already have a laundromat right down the street. It's going to attract people from Manchester and the big housing compounds. That's what I'm getting to. Okay, so anyhow, you know, and other cities and other towns do not make as much exceptions as we do in this town, which is not right. All right, I would like to read part of the stuff that was in our petition. Okay, the proposal does not meet the local requirements due to specific factors listed in this petition. Okay, and cannot adequately address the legitimate concerns raised by the residents. And again, in 2018, this project or similar project came up, 135 people signed against it. Okay, it doesn't meet the parking spaces. Okay, they're counting cars in the bays, in the stacking, which doesn't make sense. Okay, they're counting parking for the vacuums, that doesn't make sense either. And anyhow, the snow storage, that's a problem no one brought up. But the snow storage is going to be, I believe, on Hague Street by the entrance. So what's going to happen, okay, it's going to melt and it's going to cause a slippery situation. So that's dangerous too. Again, as my husband says, crazy traffic going 2 ways when the cars are coming out. That doesn't make sense. And so I'm asking you guys to please deny this. Don't let this go through, okay? Please consider us and our residential section. Enough is enough. And please vote no on this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benner.
Is there anyone else
Do you have anyone else,
downstairs?
Joanne?
Anybody else that wishes to speak? Yeah.
Well,
I don't think so, Joanne. I think we're all set down here.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank
Derek.
you. Would the applicant like to speak? And I know Attorney Sullivan is also with us. I don't know if you had
This
anything.
is Eric Mitchell. I'd just like to address some of the comments and make some clarifications. One clarification having to do with the parking. And what Joanne had said is technically correct, that stacking of cars is counted as parking, but it's counted as stack parking. The parking that we need for the laundromat, for the car wash, we need 2 parking spaces per bay. So we need 6 places for cars to park, or just having the car wash there. We need to have 8 spaces for the laundromat based on the square footage of the laundromat. So the 8 plus the 6 is a total of 14. What we need for passenger cars to be able to park around the parking lot is 14. We have 23 spaces available for that. If you want to take it literally and talk about parking, yes, the stacking counts as the word parking, but it's stacking parking is different than the parking for motor vehicles, for cars or trucks or vans. So that we have ample parking for the laundromat and for the car wash, and we need 23 spaces. We need 14 and we have 23. So everything, no cars are going to go park in the stacking place and sit there and go in the laundromat. There's other places from the park, and there's more than enough parking for that. I just want to clarify that. In addition, I just want to confirm or be able to say that our entrance on Hague Street into the property is a one-way in only. There's not going to be any cars going from the laundromat out to Hague Street. It's only coming in. And the parking that we have there is diagonal parking, so people will not be able to back and turn their car around so they can pull out onto Hague Street. So the geometry of all of that, cars will go out on towards the Mass Road or towards Joffrey Street from the laundromat. They will not be going out to Hague Street. We have signs that will be going up on that, and there are signs that on Mass Road that are going to be shown for stop signs and no left-hand turn, and those are still going to be there. In terms of the snow storage, we do have a note on the plan that if there's any snow that cannot be physically left on site, that it must be trucked off, and that is absolute. Obviously, you'd like to put what you can on site, but sometimes we get big storms and we can't, and so the snow has to be trucked off to a suitable facility where it can be left. So I just wanted to comment on those, and I'll be glad to answer any of the questions if you happen to have them.
Thank you, Eric.
There's another person on the phone. I don't know if they're hanging on to speak about this application.
Would you please find out, Joanne?
Hello? Is anyone else out there that would like to speak on this on the phone? I guess not.
All right, then, at this time, we will...
Joanne, or Tim, if I could just make a couple comments, Andy Sullivan.
Sure.
Okay, Andy, go ahead.
Sure, just want to make an observation. There's no variance necessary in this thing. We're here before the planning board for site plan review. It's an allowed use. I understand all the comments from the abutters, but that section on that section of Mass Road allows the use. I understand it's been residential for a long time, but things change to accommodate the use that is allowed, and that's all we're trying to do here.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Sullivan. So right now, we are going to close the public hearing, actually suspend it till a future meeting, but at this time, we're going to close it for the purposes of this meeting. Board members, do you have any questions or comments for the applicant for consideration future meetings?
Tim, this is Jim. I have one that, based on the comments from the neighbors, but also comments in the write-up, is on the exhaust pipes and the noise the vents from the dryers and like addressed either tonight or at the later meeting, what noise those create, because they are on the residential and the exterior of the development. And then the second is I guess I'm still a little confused on the pumps, so maybe we can have another go with that, including the hours of operation. And I understand the numbers are not going to change, but is the configuration or anything else about them?
So you have specific questions for them to be answered tonight, Jim?
No, they can answer them next time. I just
Okay.
want to alert them that those are the questions they'd like to get some answers.
Just a quick response, Jim, on the pumps. The existing pumps are going to be still the existing pumps. They're going to be in the same location, but they're getting rid of the little islands and they're putting the actual vacs on the poles. So the type of pump, the actual pumps, the actual vacuums are staying the same. So, and the location is staying the same. They're just removing them backwards.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Other board members? Joanne, do we need to hear from Public Works or anything at this time, or any other departments from the town departments?
Well, Sarah had many comments, but I don't know if we necessarily need to go over them because Eric does have the list and he has to make those corrections.
Okay. So at this time, Joanne, what is your recommendation for this application?
I would recommend that the planning board continue this application to June 24th.
Jim, I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jim. So Jim Raymond's made a motion to continue this to June 24th, 2021. Do I have a second?
Collis, you're muted.
I'm going to second it. Thank you. This is Colin.
Thank you, Hollis. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Kimberly?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Collis?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And Tim, the chair, votes yes. I'd like to thank all the folks that came in and waited patiently downstairs tonight for your comments. I took notes and they've all been listened to, so you're not being ignored, please. So we're happy to have you. Thank you for coming. All right, anything
Thank
else
you.
for tonight, Joanne?
No, I think that's it.
Phil, it's your turn to make the motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Phil. Do I have a second?
I'll second Kimberly.
Thank you, Kimberly. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Kimberly?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Collis?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight.